She mentions his name, casually, almost too casually. A coworker, an old friend, someone who texted her something funny, and you feel it. That sharp twist in your chest, that heat rising behind your eyes. The sudden urge to ask questions you know you shouldn't ask, to compete with a ghost you cannot see, to prove that you are the better choice. That reaction, that spike of jealousy, that flood of insecurity, that primal urge to fight for territory you thought you already owned, that is exactly what she is harvesting. Because the moment you react, you've handed her the map to your entire nervous system. She now knows exactly which buttons to push, which fears to exploit, and how to keep you performing for her approval indefinitely. You think this is about the other man. It isn't. This is a cold, calculated probe to measure your emotional stability, a test of your foundation. And here is the brutal truth. You are already failing the moment you react. The love triangle is not a romantic dilemma to be solved with more affection, more attention, more devotion. It is a dominance hierarchy test, and you pass it by doing absolutely nothing. Let me show you what she's really doing. The love triangle is not geometry of affection. It is not three hearts tangled in confusion. It is a tool of excavation. She is digging, mining, testing the earth beneath your feet to find where your foundation ends and where her validation begins. She drops the name of another man into conversation the way an engineer drops a probe into uncertain ground. She is looking for hollow spaces, cracks in your bedrock, places where your sense of self gives way to need for her approval. And if she can make you flinch with the mere mention of another man's name, she has found what she was looking for. She knows now that your identity rests not within you, but upon her, that your stability is contingent upon her choice. And that is fatal, because a woman cannot respect a man whose emotional state can be dictated by her whim. She cannot follow a man she can shake with a single word. She introduces friction deliberately, a text on her phone she doesn't explain, a glance at a stranger that lingers 1 second too long, a story about an ex that surfaces at suspiciously convenient moments, a male friend whose name appears more frequently than it used to. This is manufactured competition. She is not confused about her feelings. She is not genuinely torn between you and someone else. She is testing. She wants to see if you will crumble, if you will scramble to prove yourself worthy, if you will enter the arena she has constructed and fight for her attention like a gladiator performing for a bored empress. But here is what you must understand. The moment you step into that arena, you have already lost, because the arena itself is the test. The willingness to fight proves you believe the fight is necessary, and believing the fight is necessary proves you are uncertain of your own value. You were taught that love is competitive, that you must earn her, win her, prove yourself against all others. So when she introduces friction, you don't see a test, you see a challenge. And you were raised to meet challenges. You were raised to compete, to fight, to prove. And she knows this. She knows you will step into the arena because your entire masculine identity has been built on the idea that you must fight for what matters. But that programming is your prison, because the man who fights for her approval has already admitted he doesn't have it. And the man who competes for her attention has already confessed he isn't sure he deserves it. The comparison trap is subtle and vicious. When she compares you to another man, she is not trying to find who is objectively superior. She already knows. She is trying to see if you know. When she mentions his accomplishments, his humor, his attention to her, she is watching your face. She is reading your body. She is feeling for the tremor of doubt. And if you bristle, if you defend yourself, if you begin listing reasons why you are better, you have confessed something devastating. You have admitted that the comparison is valid, that there might be a better man out there, that you are not absolutely certain of your own standing, and uncertainty in a man is repulsive to her at a level deeper than thought. She feels it in her bones, and the moment she feels it, she begins to look elsewhere. Not because the other man is better, but because you've just proven you don't believe you are. This is biological, primal. older than language. She cannot respect a man whose frame shatters when she tests it. She creates chaos not because she enjoys destruction, but because she needs to see if you remain the order. If the storm she conjures crashes against you and you stand there, exactly where you were, unmoved, unbothered, unchanged, she needs to know that when real storms come, you will not break. And if you cannot withstand the artificial storm of a mentioned name, how can she trust you to withstand anything real? And often, the other man doesn't even exist. Or if he exists, he doesn't matter. He is a phantom, a ghost rival conjured specifically to haunt your insecurity. She doesn't want him. She may barely remember his face, but she wants to see what happens when you think she might want him. She wants to watch your composure crack. And if it cracks, she knows everything she needs to know about where your power actually resides. But most men fail this test before they even realize they are taking it. Watch the reactionary male. Study him, because he is everywhere. He is the man who hears about a rival and immediately begins to peacock. His voice grows louder. His gestures become more expansive. His laugh gets forced. Suddenly, he is buying gifts he cannot afford, planning elaborate dates he didn't care about yesterday, subtly disparaging the other man, with comments designed to seem casual but drip with insecurity. Oh, that guy. He seems kind of boring. She's probably just being polite. He is performing, dancing, auditioning for a role he should already own. And she watches this performance with a mixture of amusement and growing contempt. Because the psychology of trying harder in the face of competition signals one thing and one thing only: low status. Submission. A man who increases his effort when threatened is a man who believes the threat is real. A man who doubles down on devotion when another appears is a man who thinks he might be replaced. And she reads this instantly, not with her conscious mind, deeper in the wiring that tells her which man holds frame and which man crumbles. Because here's what he doesn't understand. The man who tries harder when challenged is the man who is already trying as hard as he could. And that means there was nothing left in reserve. That means he was already operating at maximum capacity just to keep her. And that is exhausting to witness and impossible to respect. He has no surplus, no overflow, no abundance. He is a well running dry. And she can see the bottom. Jealousy is not love. It is confession, a written statement, signed and delivered, admitting that you believe the other man might be higher value than you. When you feel that spike of possession, that urge to compete, that heat in your blood, you are broadcasting your insecurity like a distress signal to the one person whose respect you need most. You are telling her that your sense of worth is contingent upon her choice, that without her validation, you are uncertain of your own standing. And a man uncertain of his standing cannot lead, cannot protect, cannot be followed into the unknown. She will follow the man who is certain, even if she doesn't understand why. The validation loop is vicious and self-reinforcing. When you respond to her triangulation with anger, you prove she is the prize and you are the applicant. When you respond with insecurity, you confirm that your identity is built upon her approval. When you demand to know who this other man is, when you ask if there's something going on, when you need her to reassure you that you have nothing to worry about, you hand her the keys to your frame. You give her complete control over your emotional state. And she will use those keys, not necessarily with malice, but with the cold logic of feminine nature. She cannot help but lose respect for the man who cannot hold himself together when she mentions another name. The danger of explaining is perhaps the most devastating trap. The moment you begin to justify yourself, to list your qualities, to argue your case for why you are the better option, you have stepped down from the throne. You have become the defendant in a court where she is judge, jury, and executioner. You have accepted the premise that you must prove your worth. And in accepting that premise, you have already been found guilty of insufficient value. You lose the moment you acknowledge the competition as legitimate. Here is how the high-value man views the board. There is a fundamental difference between the subject and the sovereign. The subject needs her gaze to exist. He derives his sense of self from her attention. When she looks at him, he feels real, substantial, worthy. When she looks away, he begins to dissolve at the edges. He becomes uncertain of his own outline. He is a reflection in her mirror, and without that mirror, he is nothing but empty space. But the sovereign exists regardless of who is watching. His sense of self is not contingent upon her validation or anyone else's. He is the same man in her presence as in her absence. He does not need her to look at him to know who he is. He is complete unto himself. And this is what she is testing when she mentions other men. She is trying to determine which one you are. Whether you are subject or sovereign. Whether you exist independently or only as a reflection of her attention. Watch how they respond differently when she mentions another man. The subject's eyes widen, his body tenses. He leans forward. He is suddenly performing, suddenly trying to recapture her attention. The sovereign doesn't even look up, because he was never not looking at her. He was never not present. Her attention was never the thing that made him real. The pedestal paradox works like this. You cannot compete for a woman who is looking down on you. And triangulation is designed specifically to keep you looking up. The moment you begin chasing, proving, fighting for her attention, you have placed yourself beneath her. You have made her the prize and yourself the supplicant. And from that position, you cannot be respected. You cannot be genuinely desired. You can only be tolerated until something better arrives. The very act of competing for her confirms that she is above you. And she knows this instinctively. But this structural problem is rooted in a deeper identity problem. The concept of singular validation is poison that destroys from within. When you build your entire identity around her approval, when you make her the sole architect of your self-worth, you have placed everything you are in a basket she can drop at any moment, and she feels the weight of this. She senses that you have made her responsible for your happiness, your confidence, your sense of value. And that responsibility is repulsive to her. Not because she is cruel, but because she is programmed by 1,000,000 years of evolution to seek a man who is complete without her. A man whose validation comes from within. A man who does not need her to tell him he is worthy of existing. This is why she pushes away the safe option. She is not looking for the man who is terrified to lose her. That man's terror makes her feel like a possession to be hoarded rather than a woman to be loved. She is looking for the man who is genuinely willing to let her go. Because only that man has proven he does not need her for his identity. And what is not needed becomes infinitely more valuable than what is clung to with desperate hands. Think of yourself as an anchor, a heavy object that does not drift when the emotional tides change. When she sends her storms, when she tries to move you with jealousy, with implied threats, with the specter of other men who might want her, you must remain exactly where you are, unmoved, unbent, undisturbed. If you drift, if her manipulation successfully pushes you off course, she sees immediately that you are not anchored to yourself, you are anchored to her. And an anchor that moves with the tide is not an anchor at all. It is driftwood pretending to be stone. And driftwood cannot hold anything. It cannot protect anything. It cannot be trusted with anything. She needs you to be the stable point around which her chaos can organize itself. She needs you to be the thing that does not move no matter what she throws at you. And when you prove you can be moved by her games, she loses the very thing she was testing for. So if you don't fight and you don't beg, what do? You do the one thing she fears most: tactical indifference. But you must understand what this means, not the silent treatment. The silent treatment is a tantrum dressed in maturity. It is withdrawal designed to punish, to manipulate, to force a reaction through the absence of warmth. That is not indifference. That is aggression wearing a mask of stillness. What I'm describing is genuine, unbothered calm. The non-reaction that comes not from suppressing your feelings, but from genuinely not being disturbed. When she mentions another man, you do not flinch. You do not interrogate. You do not suddenly become more attentive as if to compete. You respond with genuine, unbothered calm. Maybe a slight smile. Maybe a simple acknowledgement. That's cool. How do you know him? And then you move on as if she had mentioned a coworker. Because to you, he is a coworker. The information carries no emotional weight because it carries no threat to your sense of self. You are so secure in your own value that the existence of other men is completely irrelevant to your stability. Because it should be. And she feels this. She feels that you are not performing indifference. You are genuinely indifferent to the threat because there is no threat. There is only a man, and you, and the distance between you that she cannot close because you are not running. This breaks her pattern completely. She expects a fight. She expects jealousy. She expects the scramble, the proving, the performance she has witnessed 1,000 times from 1,000 other men. And when she finds a void instead, when her manipulation meets nothing but stillness and mild amusement, she is forced to confront her own behavior. The mirror she was holding up to you suddenly reflects her instead. She sees herself trying to provoke, trying to destabilize, trying to manipulate, and finding no purchase, finding only a man who is unmoved by her games. Don't be the furniture she takes for granted, the reliable couch she can sink into whenever she pleases, knowing it will always be there, always in the same place, always available for her comfort. That furniture is ignored until it's needed, used until it's worn, and eventually replaced when something more interesting appears. Instead, become the opposite. Become the man whose presence is not guaranteed, not as punishment, not as manipulation, but as the natural expression of a man who has his own gravity, his own orbit, his own rich life that does not revolve around her moods and whims. She cannot take for granted what she cannot predict. She cannot ignore what she cannot count on. And she cannot replace what she cannot fully possess. The vacuum of attention is powerful beyond measure. When you withdraw your energy the moment she triangulates, you are training her. You are conditioning her nervous system to understand that bringing up other men results in less of you, not more. That this particular manipulation not only doesn't work on you, it actively costs her your attention and attention. Your genuine engagement is the currency she actually craves. By removing it when she plays these games, you teach her that games have consequences, that if she wants your presence, your investment, your warmth, she must earn it through genuine connection, not through manufactured jealousy, and she will begin to understand, at a level deeper than thought, that you are not a resource to be manipulated. You are a choice she must make, and choices, unlike manipulations, require her to be honest about what she actually wants. But indifference is only the first step, the final move, the one that separates the men who are loved from the men who are used, is the genuine willingness to burn the bridge entirely. The ultimate leverage in any negotiation belongs to the one who can walk away and truly mean it, not as a bluff, not as a threat held over her head to keep her in line, but as the simple, cold reality that you are willing to lose her rather than lose yourself, that you will not sacrifice your dignity, your self-respect, your fundamental frame, just to keep her in the game. And yes, she might leave. She might not come back. And you must be at peace with that. Because the man who can only walk away if he's guaranteed she'll follow is not actually walking away. He's still negotiating. He's still hoping. He's still dependent. But the man who walks away knowing she might never return, who is at peace with that outcome, who has already grieved the loss and chosen his freedom anyway, that man cannot be controlled. And the man who cannot be controlled is the only man worth following. Because the man who can be controlled is already lost. Keeping her at the cost of yourself is not keeping her at all. It is keeping a version of her that controls a diminished version of you. And that is not a relationship. It is captivity dressed in the language of love. When you remove your presence entirely, something remarkable happens. You move from being an option to becoming a myth. You stop being one of the men she is actively comparing and evaluating. You become instead the memory she cannot escape. The one who walked away without begging, without drama, without the fight that would have let her feel justified in her games. The one who valued himself more than he valued keeping her at any cost. And that haunts her in ways that devotion never could, because a myth is not subject to reality. A myth is not bound by time or circumstance. A myth only grows more powerful the further away it becomes. The scarcity principle is devastatingly simple. She only values what is rare. By competing for her attention, by fighting for her approval, by proving yourself against other men, you make yourself common, abundant, replaceable, just another man dancing for her favor. And there are always more dancers. But by walking away, by demonstrating that your presence is not guaranteed, that your attention must be earned, that your investment is not automatic, you become expensive, rare, valuable. And humans are wired at the deepest level to value what costs more, what is harder to obtain, what might be lost. She will chase the man who will not be chased, not because she is broken, but because the chase is the only thing that makes her feel alive. You must kill the fantasy that she is the only woman in the world capable of making you happy. This is not cynicism. This is liberation. As long as you believe she is irreplaceable, you are her prisoner. Your fear of losing her gives her absolute power over every decision you make, every reaction you have, every piece of yourself you're willing to sacrifice. But the moment you truly accept that there are other women, that your life will continue and flourish without her, that your value does not diminish one fraction if she chooses to leave, you are finally free. And paradoxically, it is precisely that freedom that makes her want to stay. She can feel when a man is free, and she can feel when a man is chained. And she respects only the free. Reframe the loss entirely. You are not losing a woman. You are losing a source of anxiety, drama, and constant testing. You are regaining your sovereignty, your peace, your center. The man who walks away from triangulation, from tests, from games designed to destabilize him, does not lose anything of value. He reclaims himself. He demonstrates beyond all doubt that his peace is worth more than her chaos. His stability is worth more than her drama. His self-respect is worth more than any validation she could offer. And the echo. The echo is where her obsession begins. When you leave without a fight, you leave a silence that screams louder than any argument ever could. You do not give her the satisfaction of a battle that would let her paint you as jealous, possessive, insecure. You do not provide the drama that would justify her games in retrospect. You simply vanish, whole and unmoved, as if the entire performance meant nothing to you. And that silence is unbearable to her, because silence cannot be argued with. It cannot be reframed. It cannot be made sense of. She will replay it endlessly, wonder about it obsessively, try desperately to understand how you could walk away so easily, so completely, without looking back. And in that wondering, in that uncertainty, in that echo of your absence, she will think about you more deeply than she ever did when you were there chasing her. Because you became the one question she cannot answer. And unanswered questions are the most addictive. The love triangle is a game played by children and endured by fools. The king does not compete for his own throne. He does not audition for a role in someone else's play. He does not prove his worth to those who have already decided to question it. He simply exists, sovereign and complete. And those who wish to be near him must rise to meet his standards. Stop chasing shadows. Stop proving yourself against ghosts. Stop competing for attention that should already be yours by right of who you are. The exit is the only entrance to power, and the moment you walk through it, you will finally understand what it means to be free.